Hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Kathryn. We're back. And if you're wondering what happened at the end of last year, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about our 2026 liveries because we got a lot of really interesting designs this year. Obviously, we've already seen them out on track and testing. We've got a couple new cars to the grid. Well, one absolutely brand new car to the grid and one car that's technically a team in a different hat, but we'll get to Audi in a second. My biggest question is, where am I going to rank the 2025 Livery of the Year, which of course is the VCARB car, because that last year's VCARB car was one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen in my very short career following motorsports. And if you want to see all of our livery reactions, they are linked above. If you are listening on your preferred podcast platform, you should head over and watch this episode over on YouTube because there will be images attached, also my face and my facial expressions. Don't forget to like and subscribe once you're there. It helps our channel grow so we can continue to inflict our F1 opinions on the greater population. And also, if you are listening on a podcast platform, please leave us a 5-star review for the same reasons. I just want to be able to spend 2026 inflicting my Formula One opinions on as many people as possible. So let's dive into the rankings. First, you need to know what the criteria was for how I ranked these from worst to best. And yes, I did overthink these. Thank you for asking. First things first. Is this a fun livery? Are the vibes good? That you're going to get scored from 1 to 5. Then, does the car benefit the brand? And there is a specific car that is the entire reason for this criteria, for this category. If you know me and if you've been listening to how we've talked about liveries in the past couple of years, I think you know which one I'm talking about, but that is also going to be a score from 1 to 5. And then the other one is this going to be an improvement from the 2025 car? Obviously, every car is different, but I think liveries are something that really you can carry from one year to the next. And it is, looking at this car on track this year, going to make me miss last year's car, or is it going to make me completely forget about it? And I will also want to shout out the F1 Instagram account for putting together side-by-sides of each car, because it really did help to kind of play, spot the difference. And then you're going to have an overall score also from 1 to 5. So your top score can be 4 points, or your top score can be 20 points. And let's see how we do. Starting with number 11, my least favorite livery of 2026. Unfortunately, it's Audi. Welcome to the grid. I don't like your car. Obviously, we are no longer in the Sauber steak kick era anymore. Whatever we wanted to call them, we are now in the Audi era. And we have been waiting so impatiently for this Audi era to come. And this is the car we get, which looks really like they took the rear of one car and the front 2/3 of a completely different car and then smushed them together all Frankenstein, because you have the Audi orange, which I have never seen orange or have thought that orange is a color that you're going to associate with the Audi brand. And then you have the front silver portion from Revolut, which is their title sponsor. They're, I think, a financial services company. I don't love it. It doesn't make sense. I think they're going to get mistaken for a poorly done McLaren livery or a very blurry Mercedes that is on fire, which remains to be seen with these new engines. So going into our criteria, is it fun? Are the vibes good? No and no. So I very generously gave them a 2 for being a new car to the grid. Does it benefit the brand? I also gave it a 1, as I said, for the fact that, where does the orange come in to Audi? And yes, I know that sometimes brands want to have specific color schemes for things like motorsport, but this is just, I feel like they just picked a color wheel because Audi isn't a very colorful brand in general, and said, we're going to do this and we're going to make it orange. And I still think it's weird. So moving on to, is this an improvement from the 2025 car? No. So this also gets a 1. I mean, I know that we've made fun of Steak and Kick for being weird and green and for all of the weird green liveries we saw over the last 2 seasons, but at least it kind of made sense. So that also gets a 1, and then the overall score is a 1. So Audi is going to be a total of 5 whole points for this car that we're going to have to look at for the entirety of the season. Moving on to number 10, and if you are in any way surprised that I ranked this car so low, you really haven't listened to me rant about the Ferrari and HP partnership. this car makes me mad. I hate this car more than I hate papaya rules. And if you've been listening to the podcast at any time for the last year, you know how lowly I think of the concept of papaya rules and honestly everything McLaren is doing in general. But we're not at McLaren yet. But this car, I hate it. I hate it so much. If we were scoring this rankings completely on vibes, which at the beginning I thought that I was going to do, just, this is how I feel about the cars, and then I decided to go all scientific about it. But if we were scoring this straight up on vibes, this car would get like negative a million points and would be ranked 11th. So congratulations, Ferrari. I like you slightly better than the Audi. And like, I think it really it comes down to the fact that when Lewis is in the car with the yellow helmet, from above, it makes it look like sunny side up eggs on a red plate. And that's just not what we're looking for. From the fun and vibe standpoint, I gave it a 1 because this is making Ferrari the iconic brand in Formula One. As Emily says, thousands of people had to approve this. This makes the Ferrari look boring. Now, does this benefit the brand? Also a 1, because I think that HP and HP's insistence of how they splatter themselves all over the car and all over like the race suits is doing as much damage to the Ferrari brand as Ferrari's own engineering is doing damage to Ferrari as a team, which we'll talk about the engineering issues as the season goes on, I'm sure. Is this an improvement from 2025? Now, I have also said that the 2025 car was not my favorite. I see what Ferrari is trying to do. The Formula One Instagram account showed this like great progression of all the different Ferrari cars over the 75 years of Ferrari's existence. And I can see what they were trying to do here. They were trying to throw it back to some older, more successful eras that they are desperately missing. But I also think that they really missed the mark big time. So is it an improvement over the 2025 car? Not really. I gave it a 2. I don't know what I was thinking when I gave it a 2, but I did. Congratulations, Ferrari. Overall, they get a 1.5, bringing their grand total to half a point higher than the Audi at 5.5 points. Oh, Ferrari. This is not going to be the last time I complain about them this season, but that's what they get for being Ferrari. Now, moving on to number 9. In a startling jump from 5.5 points to 9.5 points is our friends at Aston Martin, which is not really saying much because my first thought when I saw the livery was, oh, look, it is an Aston Martin green car. And that Formula One Instagram account also showed like side-by-sides of all the different Aston Martin era cars. And I think every year they have gotten less fun looking from a livery standpoint. And I know that the Aston Martin brand is the Aston Martin brand. They're very traditional and very I'm not saying one note in a bad way, but I'm saying that they have their path and they're going on it. It's probably something Ferrari should take note of, shockingly. But it almost makes me miss the random pop of red that we got from the 2021 car. So from a fun vibe standpoint, Aston Martin doesn't make fun, vibey cars, so they get a 1. Their road cars are beautiful, yes, but we're not talking about the road cars. Does it benefit the brand? Actually, and this is where you move so much further ahead of the Ferrari, is this benefits the brand. I gave them a 4. It's Aston Martin. You know exactly what this car is. And they don't have another green car on the grid, so it's not like they're trying to compete with another car. And obviously, I don't really want to dive into talking about the newbie car not meeting early initial expectations, but we'll get there. Improvement on 2025, I'm giving it a 2.5 because there's actually less carbon and more green on the current car, but not by much. And I feel like the pops of yellow have been saving the car over the last few years. And I think we're getting fewer and fewer pops of yellow. And like one day we're just not going to get yellow on the car at all. So that is where we get for our overall score of a 2, a very disappointing 2, but that's not what Aston Martin is here for. So that's where they get their 9.5 points. And just ahead of Aston Martin is McLaren. And we all know that McLaren is not my favorite team, but I do love elements of their liveries. And they've also come up with some really exciting special liveries over the years. It's just that everything that they do as a team is making me, strongly dislike them for it. See 2025 and see the implications of 2026. But this was also the first car of all, and obviously this was the last car to be released other than the Aston Martin because they came out on the same day. But this was the first time I looked at a car and said, oh, they have a lot more carbon fiber on the car than usual. Obviously, the last couple of years, there's been this crisis of carbon fiber all over the cars. Alpine was a real criminal when it comes to that. But looking at the McLaren, it's like, oh, why are they so worried about weight saving that they're stripping out as much color onto the car as possible when like papaya is the papaya era that McLaren has been in have been some of the most iconic liveries in, almost in the history of them as a team. But what is this saying, Ari, the car's performance going into this season, especially as they have been the two-time reigning constructors champions? So I think that's something to just make note of as we go into the season. So from a fun vibe standpoint, I give it a 3, and they get this 3 primarily because I've always been a fan of the Google Chrome wheel covers, and the fact that they are now a full-on gradient is another thing that that it popped out to me, and I was like, ooh, I like that. But they did lose points for replacing Chrome with Gemini because AI is one of the biggest environmental crises of our generation. But we're not going to go into that. Same as we're not going to go into sport washing much this year. Maybe. But anyway, does this benefit the McLaren brand? I gave it a 3. You know exactly what you're getting, which this season will be another Papaya Rules crisis, but you know exactly what team this is. And as a racing team that produces cars, this, you know exactly what you're getting. Like, you know exactly what you're getting out of an Aston Martin. Is this an improvement on the 2025 car? I do not think so. So I gave it a 2. An overall score, I gave it a 2.5, giving us a total of 10.5 points. So 1 point ahead of the Aston Martin. Now, this next one, and I think that between, Aston Martin at what I call them at 9, McLaren at 8, and this next car at 7, I feel like they're all pretty much on the same plane of, yeah, that's the car we were kind of expecting out of them, but not in an exciting kind of way. And so coming in at number 7 is the Williams. And I was kind of disappointed by the Williams. And obviously, we've been a little bit disappointed by the way Williams has kicked off the season in general. They missed out in Barcelona because the car wasn't ready. We've heard this song before. But obviously, Williams was able to bounce back, and we got some surprise podiums out of Carlos. They finished way ahead in the constructors' standings as they were expected to. So I'm not worried yet. But anyway, we kept the Duracell, and I think that was the most important part, is that we kept the beautiful Duracell battery. I'm really not sure about like the random splash of lighter blue from the Barclays branding on the side pods, but that's what sponsors are for. And I'm not so much a fan of like the actual like very specific color blocking. Like, they very much could have made the Williams blue to the Barclays light blue to the Komatsu white as a whole gradient instead of just, spot, spot, spot. So not my favorite, not the worst. I gave it a 3. It's an okay car. They will have an okay season. Hopefully they will not regress from last year in light of the new regulation. Does this benefit the brand? They got a 4. It's a Williams. It's a Williams. Is it an improvement on 2025? As I said, no, the 2025 car is better, so it only got a 2. And the overall score was a 3.5 for a total of 12.5 points. And beating out Williams just so slightly is the Mercedes. And Mercedes is coming in at number 6. I wanted to like the Mercedes more than I do. And I kind of like, as I'm sitting here looking at it, and especially looking at the top view, it looks better. I think Mercedes has had better liveries. Obviously, every livery over the last few years since they've gone, back to black has been a very similar livery. I'm a little bummed that they replaced the silver gradient with the Microsoft logo up on the top of the car, which not my favorite. I like the actual gradient instead of the, you know, the blocky attempt at a gradient that they're using with the car now. It's, I mean, when I was doing the rankings and when I was making my notes, I said, do German brands know what the word fun means? And I think that really is just like, it is the Mercedes car that we knew that we were going to get from Mercedes, and it's very, you know, nitpicky, and it's also kind of why they're smack in the middle here at number 6. You know, it's a fine livery, so they get a 3 for fun and vibes. It benefits the brand. It is a Mercedes. You got the stars everywhere. I think I like the stars everywhere on the 2025 car a little bit better, but it's fine. So they have a 3 for the improvements. I just think that the side pod blocking just looks a little choppy. Overall, they get a 3 for a total of 13 points. Now, moving on to number 5. This is one of my, it's kind of a shock placement, but it's also kind of not, and was also initially tied with Mercedes. So I had to go in and do the tie break to move one team to the actual number 5 spot. Why? Because I told myself I had to. Who is in charge? It's just me. But originally tied with Mercedes were our friends at Haas, which is ironic because Mercedes is, you know, one of the best teams when Haas joined the grid, and now they're all kind of just in the middle of the pack together, though obviously Mercedes is steps ahead of Haas. But we have a white car from Haas. I really loved their white car last year. They have more white on the car this year. I think the biggest change, honestly, was that they just changed out the sponsors on the top of the car from MoneyGram, because MoneyGram is no longer with them, to TGR, Toyota Gazoo, which I will never be able to say on my first attempt. But, you know, I like the car. I want the drivers to drive better in said car. Will they? We'll see. But from a fun vibes, it's a 4. I love a white car. White cars are always going to be fun, especially, you know, as we're trying to move away from, you know, all of that awful generation of carbon fiber cars from the last couple of years. Like this, it's nice to see a full-on white car. Does it benefit the brand? Yes, they get a 4. You know exactly who is sponsoring the team, but also they're not overpowering the overall Haas brand that they've been so known for these last couple of years. You know, it's not like the rich energy days, or it's not like what Audi and Revolut are trying to do to desecrate their vehicle. I gave it a 2.5 because it's basically about the same as last year's car, and overall they get a score of 3 for a total of 13.5 points. And now we're coming into the top 4, and I think I am just as shocked as you are that Alpine is my number 4 car of the year. It's, you know, I'm a pink Ranger girly from Power Rangers, but I am not a pink color girly. I don't wear colors at all in general, which we all know. But to look at this car and be like, where's all the carbon fiber, especially after that stupid carbon fiber car from, what was it, last year or the year before? They all kind of blend together at this point. But I do think that this year they really nailed the balance of the pink and the blue, and it wasn't just like, it's a blue car with a little bit of pink. I think that it's actually really well balanced. I am very surprised, and I just feel like it just looks a lot less stupid than the last couple of years have. So congratulations to them. I think they're also the most improved car of the year, which, like I said, don't know how this happened, but good for them. So from a fun/vibe standpoint, they get a 4. You can still use this car for your gender reveal if we're still doing gender reveals, which I wouldn't know. Does it benefit the brand? I give it a 3.5. It's an Alpine, sure. I mean, now that they're no longer with Renault and they are a Mercedes factory team now, I think that from a branding standpoint, like, what is Alpine other than F1? So sure. Is it an improvement on the 2025 car? Shockingly, I gave it a 4, just mostly because the more cohesive balance of blue and pink. And overall, I gave it a 3, docking points for Flavio Briatore and his general existence, bringing us to a total of 14.5. And now we are going to our top 3 cars. We are moving to the podium. If you are at all surprised, if you've done the math, if you're following along and checking off the cars as we go, I don't think you'd be surprised at all that the 3 cars are in my top 3. I think you're going to be surprised by the order a little bit. I know I am, but I think that having only watched, having only sat through one of the car reveals, which was the Red Bull car reveal, because I had the time and was awake for it because it was actually in the United States, and so I didn't have to wake up at, early hour of day, insert time here. Watching that, and this is going to kind of spoil my number 2 car, I think, is I was a little disappointed when I saw this car, considering how much I loved the 2025 car, because it's basically the same car as last year, but the differences are just slightly worse. And yes, I am talking about the VCARB car. So our reigning livery of the year from 2025 comes in at number 3. It's the VCARB. I was just a little bit disappointed, especially after it was revealed right after the beautiful Red Bull car. We'll get there in a minute. But, they were going with, we make the best liveries in Formula One, and they continue to do so. We're not going to mess with perfection, which they mess with perfection a little bit. Like, I really miss that gradient of little blue Red Bulls on the back that we don't have anymore on this current car. Obviously, we have a little bit more contrast of the bull, which is kind of what they've really been focusing on this year for both cars. I love it. I just don't love it as much as last year. From a fun vibe standpoint, though, it does get a 5. Is this a little bit of bias? Probably. But it's okay because it's still fully one of the best looking cars on the grid. The alternate liveries are going to kill it, but this car, the number 2 car, and the number 1 car are all going to be beautiful when we see them on race days. Does this benefit the brand? Obviously, it's a VCARB. VCARB is its own thing within the Red Bull family of networks. You know what it is, so it also gets a 5. Now, does it dock points for an improvement on the 2025 car? Yes, it loses 1.5 points. That's how math works. Yeah, it gets a 3.5. It loses those crucial points because last year's car was 100% better. But overall, I give it a 4. So our total is 17.5 points. And beating them out by half of a point is the sister team, is the Red Bull car. And if you're at any way surprised that I'm putting the Red Bull car as number 2, congratulations, or I'm sorry, whichever. But it's the same car jokes, yes, but it's the same car, but it's actually like a lot better. It's not that same dark navy with with the red and the yellow. The blue has been brighter than it has been in a while. It's got some like fun texture to it that actually looks pretty cool when you look at it up close, which obviously it's not going to show through on TV, but it's throwing back to like early era Red Bull cars, which is another one of those like Ferrari, take note of how to execute an appropriate, like good looking throwback, and stop partnering with companies whose logos are not red. I think that would really help Ferrari. But anyway, this Red Bull is beautiful. Like I saw the car when they released it, and I was like, that is a beautiful car. And usually it's like, that is a Red Bull that I like looking at. This is a beautiful Red Bull car. So congratulations to them. They did it correctly. The Fun vibes are a 4. Did they benefit the brand? This is the Red Bull brand right here. Is it an improvement on 2025? Yes, it's really that like very subtle, we are no longer in that like everything is that matte navy era. We're going into a shinier car. This is what Max Verstappen has been asking for, and as the Max Verstappen 4-time world champion, he gets what he wants eventually. And overall, I give it a 5. It's my favorite car. It is one of my favorite cars. It's beautiful. It gets 18 points. Moving on to, this is one of the most beautiful cars I have ever seen. And it is from Cadillac. And I saw this during the Super Bowl and was like, wow, they hit it out of the frickin' park. This might be one of the most perfect liveries I've ever seen. And I am obsessed with the top-down view that really shows off the two-tone, where one side of the car is black and one side of the car is white. It is, I have never seen a car so pretty and not having like so many different colors. Like obviously the Red Bull is a colorful car. Cadillac is a black and white car, but is a black and white car that has been executed so beautifully. Like I'm just obsessed. Like look at here, look at it up there. Like it's such a pretty car. I love it. Is this going to be my like new second favorite team? It might just be. But we'll see how they perform on track. But anyway, Fun vibes obviously gets a 5. Does this benefit the motorsport portion of the Cadillac brand? I think so. Also because they haven't had a motorsport portion of the brand at all, because this is their first team. This is a beautiful, perfect inaugural livery. This goes great with, the team. All the marketing materials have been black and white so far. It's basically like Mercedes without the silver and without the Petronas teal. Not sure what they really call the Petronas color, but the Petronas bluish tealish color. So I'm obsessed with this car. Guesty bestie Adam also is obsessed with this car and thinks that this might be his new favorite team, which is better than him being a McLaren fan. For all improvement from 2025, there was no car from 2025, so it either gets a 0 or a 5, depending on how you want to do the voting. I gave it a 5, and the overall score also gets a 5 because I am obsessed with looking at this car. So a total of 20, and even if you take away the 5 points from the improvement score, it is a total of 15, which would put it somewhere in the top. Where would it put it? It would still put it in the top 3, because it would still be ahead of the Alpine, but it's still perfect in all of the other categories, which makes this my 2026 Livery of the Year. I'm obsessed with this car. I want to know what you think about the Cadillac car. I want you to know what you think about the Ferrari car, of the Audi car, all of the cars. Tell me your thoughts on these cars in the comments. Anyway, that is what I have for you today. We are coming up next. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I have a long list of things that we're going to be talking about as we go into the season. Obviously, we're going to talk about Drive to Survive. We're going to talk about testing. We're going to talk about Cadillac and who they are, in case you don't know about them yet, and why I will call them Totally Not Andretti Cadillac, because that's what TWG stands for on the side of the car. TWG, Totally Not Andretti. Trust me on this. We'll do like a whole video primer of context for that. Lots of things coming down the pipe. Very excited. Like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe so that more people can see my thoughts that I can inflict upon them as related to motorsport. But anyway, coming up next, there will be another episode about a Formula One related topic. Like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at going.off.track, where there will be more thoughts on Formula One, more things that you can share with your friends to get them to also start watching Formula One this season, because this is the perfect time now that we're in a new regulation. But that's been the podcast. Thanks for going off track with me, and we'll see you in the next one.